Welcome to the official Finovate podcast with Greg Palmer. In 2007, Finovate set out to create a dynamic fintech showcase featuring live 7-minute demos. For more than a decade, our global event series has brought together tens of thousands of people from across the fintech spectrum to see cutting-edge technologies. Now you can find out what goes on behind the scenes as key influencers and innovators share the stories that they don't get to tell you from stage. Here's a glimpse of what we have in store this episode.
What if all your favorite fintechs arrived as one bank? So now you only need one bank account, but you have access to this unified interface to some of the most, qualitative fintech products designed for you and your business.
And now, your host, Greg Palmer.
Thanks for tuning in to the Finovate podcast. This is Greg Palmer. Today, I'll be chatting with Jeremy Berger from Arival Bank. Arival is a digital bank focused on small and medium-sized enterprises all over the world, looking to give them the technological tools they need to help their businesses succeed. Earlier this week, I was talking with Karen Mills, author of FinTech, Small Business, and the American Dream. Arival is a company that's out there turning that dream into a reality. Of course, not just for companies in America, but all over the world. Let's go now to the interview. I'm here talking to Jeremy Berger, the co-founder of Arival Bank, who presented on stage at Finovate Asia in 2018, one of our best of show winners there. Jeremy, thank you for joining me today.
Hey, Greg. Happy to be here. Many thanks for having me.
Excellent. So let's get things started for people who haven't seen a version of your demo yet. Give us just a quick overview on Arival Bank.
Yeah, sure. So Arival is a digital bank for customers that are rejected by traditional and digital banks. So basically, there's a bunch of businesses and entrepreneurs that fall into this category of being underbanked, whether they're startups, freelancers, crypto-related businesses, charities, expats, refugees. Really, the list goes on and on. So we've identified them as abnormal. Basically, traditional banks and even digital banks view them as higher risk, unusual, but we think abnormal is quickly becoming the new normal in banking today. What's unique about us is we bundle some of the hottest fintechs on the market into one banking platform. So it really ensures that these small to medium-sized businesses effectively are getting access to these amazing fintechs on the market. At the same time, a big reason banks don't want to work with these kinds of businesses is because their compliance is not designed for them. So from day one, we've made compliance our X factor.
I think that's really interesting. The concept of unbanked continues to expand because when it comes down to it, there are a massive number of people across the world who are obviously in that unbanked, underbanked category, but you can kind of continue to expand that definition to include people that we don't traditionally associate with those phrases, which is, I think, one of those really interesting trends to keep an eye on. You guys actually just raised $2.3 million in funding. Can you tell us a little bit more about where that came from and why that's so unique?
Yeah, so what's cool about the funding is that we actually went kind of this atypical route of equity crowdfunding. So we raised $2.3 million from two platforms. One is Seed Invest. They're an SEC licensed broker-dealer platform here in the US. And then the latter one is Crowdcube, very well-known equity crowdfunding platform in the UK that had successful raises from the likes of Monzo and some of the other digital banks in Europe. A big reason we wanted to kind of pursue this route is because we thought it was going to be a great opportunity to get our future customers involved right now, not only as supporters, advocates, but also investors and even testers of our products. So we're very excited that we are overfunded, actually. So our minimum target for the round was $850,000 USD. And as we already discussed, we raised well over that. So it was a very successful round, and we're excited that now we're going to use this money for licensing, for product development, and really expanding our team here in the next few months.
And I think where you'll be expanding that team is also something that's pretty interesting because, talking to you ahead of pushing record here, you recently moved to Puerto Rico from Singapore. And that was something that was fascinating to me. But, to hear you describe that you see a real opportunity for the fintech ecosystem there. Tell us a little bit more about that move and kind of where that reasoning came from.
Yeah, good question. So I think maybe it's important to talk a little bit about where we come from originally. So we came from Singapore about 5.5 years ago. We set up one of the first fintech venture capital funds in Southeast Asia with my team here at Arival. And about 2 years ago, we started this internal venture named Arival Bank, which was more or less a spin-off of our fintech venture capital fund. But we've had, over 5 years of experience investing into some of the hottest fintechs across the world, including 4 digital banks that we exited from, Movin and Simple, both from the US, Finovate from Germany, and Rocket Bank as well. But then we decided, what about Singapore did we really like, and how could we find a similar market opportunity elsewhere? We had a really unique opportunity to really contribute to the ecosystem locally in Singapore, and then, in the Southeast Asia landscape as well. And now Puerto Rico is seeing this kind of early growth of a lot of unique and innovative fintech businesses coming to the island, trying to set up shop and operations. And a big driver of that is kind of the economic opportunity where fintech can become a real remedy for growth. So I think we really wanted to take advantage of that. We moved here about 5 months ago with my team. We're anticipating our license to be issued in Puerto Rico, our international banking license. And as you know, Puerto Rico is a U.S. territory. So there's many different benefits and advantages of being here. It's effectively an entry point into the U.S. and beyond. So yeah, we've been here for 5 months living in the Caribbean. We can't really complain. And at the same time, we are focusing heavily on business.
Yeah, right. No, that's really interesting because I think it's something that I actually hadn't heard of before you had mentioned it. But as the idea kind of sits on me, I see how it makes sense. And certainly, there's a massive need for it in terms of the Puerto Rican economy, and obviously still recovering from the devastation of the hurricane a little while ago. But really looking at it as an opportunity. And I think there are some parallels that you can make. And I think, you also earlier had mentioned that there's some overlap between that and places like Lithuania, which sort of serves a similar role potentially for European startups. And that's become a real hotbed for fintech innovation. We at our European show, we always see companies from that area who come in, and there are some things that make that type of environment really unique and really attractive.
Yeah, Greg, great point. So Lithuania is a very good example to kind of showcase how well fintech has matured to the point where not only qualitative fintech products exist, with API capabilities, strong SDK kits, traction, but also regulators now are acknowledging this, and they're introducing innovative framework to support the advancement of fintechs, of challenger banks, etc. And now it's reached the point where governments, especially like Lithuania, are encouraging competition. They're issuing many, many licenses because they really want to bring these innovative fintechs to the ecosystem, not only to Europe, but help them expand internationally as well. So I think, Lithuania is actually next in our pipeline. We're going to apply for a license there at the end of this year. After that, we'll come back eventually to Asia and apply for licenses there. Puerto Rico is at a point where we can really contribute locally from not only our venture capital experience and through different accelerators and incubators, but bring together kind of this ecosystem of fintechs into one banking platform. And that experience, I think, will be invaluable for the ecosystem here.
Sure. Well, we're coming up on the end of our time, but I do just want to quickly touch on, one last piece here because, the idea of small business fintech is one that has been kind of captivating for me for a while. We've seen a lot of companies come across the fintech stage or the Finovate stage who are working in that space, but it doesn't seem to catch on in the same way that some of the other products have that are more kind of direct to consumer. And so here's the question for you. Are small business innovations kind of lagging behind the rest of the fintech market, and why might that be? And I'll give you just about 45 seconds to get an answer there.
Yeah, sure. So in fintech, there's about 25 different verticals, different product lines. So we've identified about 10 that are really tailored and designed for small to medium-sized businesses, ranging from corporate expense cards to invoicing, factoring, loans, etc. But right now, the experience is very chaotic. You're going on this goose chase of exploring and navigating the product marketplace yourself. You have to download all these different apps, create all these new accounts, pass KYC, and then you find yourself managing kind of like this plethora of different banking products, tools, and fintech services. So what we're saying is, what if all your favorite fintechs arrived as one bank? So now you only need one bank account, but you have access to this unified interface to some of the most qualitative fintech products designed for you and your business. So now you can imagine, data is aggregated, logins are unified, one customer support channel, and the movement of money is more transparent than ever. So I think that's really why we believe and we're so confident in this concept of fintech banking. And in fact, our CEO wrote a book on it 2 years ago, and we presented it at the likes of Wharton Business School and NCI. So this is something that we've tested, experimented, and now we're ready to make it a reality.
Yeah, well, I mean, it's really fascinating stuff. And I would encourage you, anybody who's listening, to learn more, because there are some deeper kind of theoretical pieces at play here that you guys are realizing and turning into some real world successes, which is really interesting. So you heard the bell go off, which does mean that we are out of time for today. But really, thank you very much for joining me and kind of talking through this. And it'll be really fascinating to see if others jump on that Puerto Rico bandwagon. I mean, certainly I can see the appeal. It'll also be fascinating to see how you guys are able to make some headway in a space within fintech, that sort of SMB space, which has traditionally been difficult to make headway in. So best of luck on that front. And I look forward to watching things unfold from here.
Greg, thanks so much for having me. Definitely keep an eye out, and we'll talk soon.
A wide-ranging conversation there with Jeremy, which was great, I thought. I didn't expect that we would talk as much about where they are choosing to set up their headquarters, but now that we did, I'm really interested in that as a topic of conversation. So we'll continue to talk with other companies that I speak to about that. I'll also continue to explore how fintech is changing the landscape for small businesses and creating opportunities for fintechs, for banks, and for small business owners themselves. So stay tuned for more on that front as we get there. In the meantime, thank you for listening. And as always, if you enjoyed what you listened to, hit like, hit subscribe, and don't forget to check out Finovate.com for information on all of our upcoming events. And remember, the discount code Finovate Podcast will save you 20% off tickets to any of our upcoming shows, wherever and whenever you would like to join us. Thanks for listening.
Thanks for joining us on the Finovate podcast this week. Brought to you by the team behind Finovate and produced in association with Provoke Media. Make sure you tell your friends about the show, leave us a review on iTunes, SoundCloud, or wherever you listen to our show, and check out our upcoming events at finovate.com.